President Bush made several trips to East Tennessee during his time as our 41st president.
For a look back now at those presidential visits to the volunteer state, we turn to WBIR 10 News reporter Jim Matheny. Jim.
Hey, Robin and John. Well, President Bush not only visited and campaigned in East Tennessee, he turned to the volunteer state for national leadership. During his one term as president,
there he is again.
George Herbert Walker Bush took time to travel to East Tennessee.
Nice to see you. What a beautiful day. Thanks a lot.
And Barbara Bush knew the color to connect with the locals.
The orange roses, not bad.
The Bush family campaigned here in 1988 en route to an election victory over Michael Dukakis. Came back to Knoxville in February 1990 when University of Tennessee President Lamar Alexander invited him to speak at UT.
I hope that you'll continue to give voice to this state's frontier virtues: hard work, loyalty, love of faith, family, and the volunteer state.
And in September 1992, President Bush came back to Tennessee for a tour of the labs at Oak Ridge and spoke of the city's role in shifting from the nuclear arms race of the Cold War to the race for technological breakthroughs at home.
We will transform the arsenal of democracy into the engine of economic growth.
I was so excited. I told the people I work with, I have got to get out there and see him. I just got to.
During that visit, the president also spoke at the Civic Coliseum in Knoxville. And this was all during a losing fight for re-election. But the president did not use his time in Tennessee to sling mud at his opponents.
I am fortunate. The world still looks to this great country for leadership, and I am very proud to serve as your president. May God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
And Tennessee was important politically to President Bush, both father and son. Now, Bill Clinton, he carried Tennessee and beat H.W. Bush in 1992. But then in 2000, George W. Bush would not have been president had he not won Al Gore's home state of Tennessee. Robin and John.
Jim Matheny with a look back. Again, President Bush will lie in state in the Rotunda until Wednesday morning. A memorial service in Washington will be held at 11 Wednesday morning.
The former president will then be moved to Texas, where a second memorial service will be held at a church there Thursday. President Bush will be taken by a train to College Station, where he will be laid to rest at his presidential library.